All right. Welcome, everyone. You guys can hear me all right?
Okay.
So this is Cyber Power of Tigray. Our guest today, Danny from Denver, Kathy from Sacramento, Maza, she's visiting Portland for tomorrow's protest, but I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourself each quickly. However, I wanna welcome each and every one of you. This is the Young Tagaru to address the crisis in Tigray, Ethiopia. And we are gonna have the English version of our discussion today. So welcome. I'm gonna let Maza go first, and then we'll go Kathy, and then Danny. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me today. My name is Muazzez Gidey. I am a human rights activist and an international relations researcher. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy, and I currently reside in Sacramento, and I'm just trying to help out as much as I can in the community and to bring awareness on this war in Tigray.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel, go ahead, please.
Very good. Thank you for having us. My name is Daniel Waldo. I'm a community organizer here in the Denver, Colorado area, and also participated in the national dialogues on helping Tigray get information out to the greater international community. So thank you for having me again.
Thank you very much, all three of you. Obviously, we're working on to emphasize in English to make sure that our viewers that are internationally watching what's happening in Tigray, those who are Tagaru and non-Tagaru who are supporter of Tigray, and the people of Tigray could hear what truly is happening on the ground, the crisis that have been created by an evil man, Abiy Ahmed, who has become a puppet for Eritrea's Isaias Afwerki. So the topic today is genocide in Tigray. I'm gonna start off with you, Maza, if you don't mind me. We're discussing about genocide, and there is the notion somehow the Ethiopian unelected Abiy Ahmed claims himself to be a prime minister, which he's not. He has created genocide based on ethnic and Tigray. What could you tell the viewers, and what could you emphasize on why the Tigray people are being targeted in the 21st century?
So first of all, genocide is nothing but a systemic extermination of a particular ethnic group. And the people of Tigray, which constitutes around 10 million people within Ethiopia, have been subjugated, or they have been subjected to numerous violations against humanity, war crimes, and crimes against humanity ever since Abiy Ahmed assumed power some 2.5 years ago. He has been doing a lot of things that would put the lives of Tigrayans in danger, starting from blocking the road that connects Tigray to the rest of the country, blocking international investors from heading to Tigray and investing in Tigray, possibly creating job opportunities for the youth and boosting the economy. So he has been doing this for quite some time now. And the main reason behind all of this is because the strong demand and dedication people of Tigray have towards the right self-determination. And Abiy Ahmed and his supporters have a problem with this notion because the Ethiopia that they envision is intolerant of differences. It is intolerant of people's right to self-administration. Abiy Ahmed and his supporters want to create a pan-Ethiopia where diversity is not appreciated, where people are not allowed to be who they are, meaning under the Abiy Ahmed's Ethiopia, Tigrayans will be forced to speak language that is foreign to them. Tigrayans will be forced to abandon their innate cultures and cultivate or adhere to cultures that are common in other ethnic groups, particularly the Amhara. And so the people of Tigray have been showing their revolt against such kind of mentality peacefully. They have been calling for peaceful dialogue and inclusive nationwide discussion that would hopefully bring about solution to these problems. However, Abiy saw this as a weakness and he waged war on the people of Tigray. But what's happening on the ground, as you rightfully explained at the beginning, is not just a war, it's systemic genocide. We say this because there are so many indications that prove that it's genocide, starting from the freezing of bank accounts of all Tigrayans, all the way to weaponizing basic necessities such as medicine, food, and fuel, right? So, as I said earlier, the main reason is because the people of Tigray do believe in their democratic and constitutional right to self-administration. However, the dictatorial regime in Addis does not recognize this right, and the only way to subjugate the people of Tigray, the only way to make sure that the people of Tigray do not come on the way of his project towards creating a pan-Ethiopia is by either exterminating them or by forcing them to flee their land and give away their land to other people. So that's exactly what's happening on the ground and the reason behind it. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. So we're going to talk about that actually. We're going to come back about the land grabs and everything else. So hold your thought on that. Kathy, can you fill us in as to why the Abiy administration, who should have held an election in May 2019, which then would have, Ethiopia would have successfully had an election while COVID-19 was also doable, because we've seen that in Tigray. And I'm saying this to you guys because the election that was held in Tigray, to clarify to the audience, it was a regional election, which is within the Ethiopian constitution. According to the Ethiopian constitution, regional states, which I believe there are 10 states in Ethiopia, are within their constitution to elect their choice, which we have it here in the United States of America. We have states, 50 states, and for that matter, each states get to determine who their next governor would be. That goes from local to state government, how each states operate, which I'm just trying to simplify for the audience. So in Ethiopia, I want Kathy to emphasize about what the Tigray leadership at the regional level did to deserve what the federal government, who has no mandate as we speak, effective October, I believe it was 1st or the 5th, they would have been a new administration or himself had he had an election. So failure to do so had consolidated power and he has become a dictator. Therefore, we have seen the massacre that should not be taking place in Tigray region of Ethiopia. So Kathy, if you can just tell us kind of what led to this and why the Abiy administration has targeted the ethnic. I think Maza has like explained it, but why is it that they couldn't sit down on the table and have a discussion and resolve their differences?
I mean, so Abiy, the dictator, Abiy Ahmed, decided that he doesn't want to have an election 2020 as it was scheduled. And when Tigray went ahead and said, no, we're going to go ahead and hold our election and on time as they did. I mean, the reason why Abiy didn't want it is he knows that he's not going to be able to win the election. He has, in all odds, a lot of the regional governments and other states does not support a one-party prosperity party that he calls it, and they don't want to be a part of it. I think it goes the same for Tigray. They want to be able to self-govern, and also the same for some of the Oromo population. They do not support the one government agenda that he's trying to push on everybody. So I mean, after the election was successful in Tigray, he had no choice at this point. Then, you know, he didn't feel like that he wants to hold a dialogue, although the Tigray leaders have been calling for dialogue, for discussion. And actually the leaders have been calling out world leaders to intervene, that the things that are brewing for the last 2 years is a sign that they can't seem to, you know, get along or have a dialogue or, you know, work with the with the Ethiopian government. And so, like, as a last resolution for him is to try to destroy Tigray, but we all know that he's been working closely with the Eritrean government, Isaias. And that's been part of his mission, it seems like, from the beginning. And, you know, the whole, like, visiting back and forth and, you know, in Tigray, making it seem like everything is great, but it's not. The real issue hasn't been resolved. And so, to the Eritrean government, this is a retaliation for their failure in their government and their independence to not be successful and have an economic growth. They're blaming the Tigray leaders for their failure. Really, I mean, it's really, to me, mind-blowing that for how long they wanted to be independent, but yet they want to just sit here and blame and destroy Tigray as a revenge. You know, and Abiy, we all know, I think everybody saw that what he's been doing for the last 2 years. He's been targeting them, as Maza mentioned, closing roads, blocking food from entering to Tigray. So he has been doing this systematically to destroy and hurt the people of Tigray. This has not been about the government or the what he calls it thereafter, TPLF. Clearly, it's after the innocent people, kids, women, elderlies that are being suffering right now and dying. So, yeah.
Thank you, Kathy. So talk about death, Danny. We know that at the beginning there was the Maikadra massacre, which I'd like us to still stay on the topic of genocide. Genocide by 2 men. We know Eritrea has been under dictatorship for 30 years. And we know that Isaias Afewerki's intention is to eliminate as many Tigray people as possible, while the two sisterly regions could peacefully coexist. Rather, he wants to maintain his grip to power until he dies. There has been a number of rumors that in Maikadra alone, Eritrean soldiers have wore like a Tigray military uniform and have massacred people. And we know that from the refugees in Sudan that the killing that took place in Maikadra had everything to do based on the ethnic from the Amhara, and the Amhara militia, in fact, enter to the front lines thinking what Maza was saying, that they were going to be just handed over the land of Tigray. When we say this, we're talking about, for the people who doesn't quite understand geopolitics in East Africa or Ethiopia, is that there is a conflict of territorial disputes within every state in Ethiopia. And there was a notion somehow that the Amharas were just going to come in with rope is what they used to measure for measurements to basically grab land. And therefore, the genocide that took place, we know there are enough witnesses in Sudan who were displaced as a result of the massacre that have spoken the horror that has taken place. Yet Abiy Ahmed has been blaming the victims, which is an insult to an injury. Could you help us to the audience to understand? And there are lists of other cities throughout Tigray that massacre, in fact, have taken place. Can you explain to us why is the Eritrean and the Ethiopian federal forces, along with the Amhara militia, are targeting civilians throughout the Tigray region?
Oh, very good. Thank you. So a few key components to mention before diving into the massacre of Maikadra. One, we have to understand why these forces are coming together to attack Tigray. Tigray, like Maza and Kathy mentioned, values its self-determination and adheres to the constitutional orders. So when we look at the setup of the Constitution and the way that we all administer each other's states, that doesn't go hand in hand with the mission of these three forces. The Amhara militias believe in this expansionist ideology where they need to expand on and broaden their horizons to multiple areas. There's disputes with Benshangul Gomez, there's disputes with Afar, there's disputes with Tigray, and we currently just saw one with Sudan. So we're witnessing the conflict on the borderline with Sudan. So peace and security within its region. As all of us know, Tigray was the most peaceful state in Ethiopia until November 3rd. And so that's important for everyone to know this, because the reason why there's no peace in Tigray right now is because these forces came in and destroyed it and displaced people from all corners of the state. And so, and then when you have the federal government is clearly, well, the legitimate federal government is clearly out for a consolidation of power. So when you look at the common denominator between all three of these, they have interest that aligns with one another. And the common obstacle to them is the Tigray region, because the Tigray region will not submit to any outside forces that come to its land to tell it how and where to how to govern itself. So when you see that, the Fano and the Haram militias will definitely come in. It will come in, and we've seen photos and other war tools like machetes and knives being on photos of militias, and the testimonies of the refugees that tell you about what took place is very consistent to that. They will kind of share you. We saw people being killed like how you cut wood, and these are the expressions that the folks at the refugee camps have. But let's just say that we are trying to get to the bottom of the truth on what happened in Makadra and other places. What would make the utmost sense in this case is to allow independent journalists to enter the state and to investigate the crimes that took place. Whether it was done by the Tigray forces or somebody else, this needs to be investigated so that the people of Tigray get or the people of Makadra and people in different areas of West Tigray, Central Tigray, Eastern Tigray, and South Tigray who have witnessed genocide, frankly speaking, in this time, so they get exactly the justice that they deserve. One thing that I want to mention, I think that gets loosely seen, is the actual word genocide. What does genocide mean? And the textbook definition of genocide is, let me read you this. It's the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying the nation or group. Okay? It's a deliberate work that's being done by the federal government, FANO, and the Eritrean government as one, coming together to attack the people of Tigray, to exterminate the people of Tigray. They have yet to capture any officials, like as they say, their operation, and it's concluded. Nothing has happened except there was displacement of Tigrayans. There was displacement of Tigrayans out of Tigray to where they became refugees in Sudan. And mind you, these Tigrayans could have gone to Gondar, or they could have gone to Eritrea if they felt like those are the safest places that they could have gone to as refugees. But they opt out to go to Sudan. And that tells you that the threat was coming from those two directions, from those two forces. They didn't feel safe going in those directions. And so we have to deeply look into why things are happening, and what do we do moving forward? What does the international community, and I'm sure you will bring this up in the next set of questions, but how do we get the message to this international community so they understand exactly what's really taking place? Thank you.
Actually, Danny, let's stay on that one. I was going to go to Maza, but I want to, let's briefly continue on that topic, the genocide that you describe. And we have, there's a UN back, I believe it's in 1948. There is a convention that passed by the United Nations regarding the genocide that you actually briefly talked about. Article 2 of the Genocide Convention definition genocide as there are a few outline also that I would like to share with you guys. Mm-hmm. This is quoted. Genocide means any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing member of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to a member of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in a whole or in part, imposing measure intended to prevent birth within the group, forcefully transferring children of the group to another group. Even though the last part may not applicable to what's happening, we do know 2.3 million children in Tigray are in needs of humanitarian as a result of the current crisis that shouldn't be taking place. It is a senseless war. So I'm adding to your point, but that actually is Article 2 of the UN that I just described to you guys. So could you actually stay on that topic for a moment? And I want to give them an opportunity also to have a chance to describe regarding the systematic. It's not just the killing that we're talking about. It's the displacement. It's the systematic taking out the Takaza River, where it was the first target to be bombed, the sugar factory that supply resources, the various things. Can we touch base on those, please? And then I'm going to have Maza an opportunity to respond as well, please.
Yeah, I think Maza is going to do a much better job than I in explaining the humanitarian side and how this relates to UN. It's not my forte. I'm not a political science person. I work closely with our communities to make sure things are flowing right. But from my perspective, from things that I've read and watched in the last 54 days, I would say that this is very much in line with everything that the UN Charter states as a genocide. We've had conversations with folks before. So I had the pleasure of speaking with two young girls who are UK citizens who were able to tell us about the atrocities that they witnessed in Maqala during the bombings that happened at the university and the church. If you recall that story, these girls remember seeing fighter jets hovering over Maqala repeatedly, and seeing that these planes were dropping bombs on the civilians of Maqala. So when you look at the just no care to the civilian lives in Tigray, as the federal government, the legitimate federal government, continues to move around and attack different parts of Tigray with the helps of the actress of Isaias Afwerki and the UAE drones, you know exactly this is the textbook definition of genocide that's taking place in Tigray. And I'll leave it at that. I think me giving Maza the bulky of this, and maybe Kathy, who can add to this, will do a better job of explaining this.
That's good, Danny. Thank you. It makes sense. So Maza, he talked about like land grabbing. To keep in line to what we're talking about, I still want us to come back in a bit about the land grabbing, but the genocide that we're describing, obviously, it's horrible. I mean, what else do we need to show the world that civilians, innocent civilians, 2.3 million children in Tigray are being choked? 9 million, roughly an estimated 9 million people in the Tigray region are in a desperate needs of help. And the war is still going on. We are, I believe, about 54 days into it. And we were told by the dictator, Abiy Ahmed, that he was going to finish up this fight in 3 days. And it was about law and order. And I want to remind our audience, law and order actually was a word stolen from the Trump administration. And if you ask me the difference between Abiy Ahmed and Trump, when it comes to lying, I think Abiy Ahmed probably could win a trophy in lying. We thought the Trump administration was just crazy in America. But what we've seen in the Abiy administration is that his lies, his stories actually change by every hour. I mean, it used to be every other day or so. Now it's like by the hour. So he's run out of any lies that he possibly can think of. And today he mentioned how somehow that he's been saying Eritrea is never involved in the fight in Tigray. We knew that from day one, it has been, but now he's claiming that Eritrea's involvement is because Tigray bombed Eritrea, which actually Tigray was very calculated in a few of the bombs that took place at the airport in Asmara, which they were using that for fighter jets to come in and bomb churches in Mekelle and various facilities in Tigray. That was actually not part of the Tigray military base. So could you kind of tie those together for us and explain to the audience why is the Abiy administration, who lost support from all part of the country, as Danny said, the crisis is happening throughout the country now, but he is still focused and in eliminating the population in Tigray?
So, Danny and yourself explained what genocide is in reference to the convention from the UN. But just in simple words, genocide is a systemic extermination of a group of people. It's an ethnic cleansing with an intent to completely wipe out a group of people. And that could be done or delivered using different mechanisms. It could be done through starvation of people. It could be done through, forcing people to migrate from a certain place to another. It could be done through even raping, because we have seen rampant raping in Tigray being committed not only by forces, from the Amhara special forces, from the militias, from the military, and also the FANU, but also Eritrean troops. And that it has two main purposes. The first one is to terrorize and collectively punish the people of Tigray, but also to change the ethnic makeup of the next Tigrayan generation. And so this is being done in order to diminish our number. But the overall, the one thing that everyone needs to understand is what's happening to Tigray is not something unique. Abiy Ahmed, ever since he assumed power, has been doing the same exact thing to other ethnic groups and other regions as well. He did it to the Oromo community, he did it to the Somalis, but the only difference we see is Tigray happened to have a well-organized community and also strong government that was able at least to defend its people and its right to self-administration to some extent. But Abiy had to come after Tigray mainly because Tigray was the last threat holding the ethnic federalism alive in Ethiopia, a constitutional framework that allows people to administer themselves by themselves. And so this is why he wants to exterminate Tigrayans, because Tagaru or Tigrayans are a group of people that have an ancient history that makes Ethiopia what it is today. If we speak about Ethiopia as a country that has a very rich history in terms of religion and other practices that goes back to some 300,000 years, it's because of the ancient civilization in Aksum and in other parts of Tigray. And so unless you somehow subjugate this group of people, unless you somehow shame them into silence, you won't be able to get away with your, one Ethiopia or pan-Ethiopian ideology, because they're going to be there not only to fight for themselves, but also to inspire other ethnic minorities within the country to defend their right self-administration. So this is the main reason. I can't hear you, you're on mute.
Sorry. So let me stop you right there. So isn't actually precisely what the initially when the Tigray movement fought the Derg regime and overtook Ethiopia in 1991, isn't it precisely what they did? Is that they shifted from a government that believed that only the Amharic language should be the language used throughout Ethiopia, and attempting to get rid of the rest of the regional languages spoken by millions of people in various part of the country. Ethiopia, I believe, has over 80 different ethnic groups and over 87 different languages. And the audience, I don't want to get myself in trouble, obviously. Those are like an estimated number that I hear. You can correct me on that. But that being said, wasn't it like so beautifully designed that the country, in fact, was freely allowed to utilize by regional states their own language, but still yet Amharic still remain the official government language of the land, while the rest languages still were respected and utilized through academics throughout the country. So the complaint that the Amhara, in particular, I'm going to just point out one group, one ethnic group in Ethiopia, who have had created. On one hand, they pride how about Ethiopian history evolves, and they talk about the civilization that you talked about, Aksum, or the history in Adwa, how the Italians were defeated and stuff. But I don't want to confuse the people. But when they talk about the pride about Ethiopia, most of the history that we talk about have taken place in Aksum and Adwa and other places in Tigray. So if they hate the Tigray people, how can they be proud of and claim themselves Ethiopia? Because those historical locations that we're talking about happens to be in Tigray. So to me, and also to add to that, what benefit is there for the Ethiopian army to allowing the Eritreans to come in and loot historical churches, places that are not replaceable? What are they gaining out of it? And how could like a government that claims that he is legitimate, which he's not, allowed a foreign troops to come in and terrorize its own citizen? I mean, I'm just trying to like grasp, a way that makes sense to the audience. So for us, we know what's happening, but the audience who have no idea about the politics in Ethiopia, can you describe it in a more simplistic way, briefly? And then I'm going to give Kathy an opportunity to also just throw in, but I'm going to have another question for Kathy. But if you don't mind, Maza, just to keep you in that topic, talk about that history that you mentioned. Why are the Amharas bragging about the history of Ethiopia while they still celebrate during ethnic cleansing in Tigray?
So when you are an expansionist, you don't only go after the land, you also go after the history and the pride of other ethnic groups, right? So Tigray, as I was talking earlier, is home to ancient civilizations. It's home to cultures and historical moments that make Ethiopia what it is today. A land of free people, the very first Black community that successfully defeated Western invaders, known as like the Italian colonizers, right? So it's not only the land, which happens to be in Tigray, but it's also the people who made it possible. And so this ethnic group, like the Amharas, they don't only go after our lands, like the Welkite, the Raya, they also go after our civilizations. Some of them, you would hear them talk about how the Aksum civilization and also the Aksum obelisk was not built by Tigrayans, but by other ethnic groups. So people shouldn't be surprised whenever they hear this kind of allegations and claims. But the one thing we want the international community to understand is that the Ethiopian dictatorial regime invited Isaias to come in and loot one of the Ethiopian ethnic groups, which is Tigray, because they very well knew that Tigray cannot be defeated. So they had to garner support from foreign foes in order to achieve their goal. But as you're witnessing right now, and no matter how many troops are involved in Tigray, the Tigrayan defense forces have been defending the territorial integrity as well as the people of Tigray as much as they could. But all of this is being done out of hatred. There is no any legitimate reason whatsoever that could justify the level of atrocity and pain that is being inflicted upon the people of Tigray. The government, the democratically elected and constitutionally mandated regional government in Tigray, has been calling for all-inclusive national dialogue. They have been calling for ceasefire and discussion way before the war, and even as the war goes on, even as the genocide on Tigray goes on, the government of Tigray and the people of Tigray have been calling for national dialogue, because we don't want war. The people of Tigray do not want war, because we have been through the same thing. So many regimes that came before Abiy Ahmed have been trying to exterminate Tigrayans way too many times. So, but the people of Tigray have always, fought for their rights, defending their land and people. But right now, the only difference you see is this regime seems to, learn tricks from other regimes, and in order to avoid and close the loopholes that he might have as a government, he solicited for support from not only Eritrea but also the United Arab Emirates and some other neighboring countries. So over 6 million people of Tigray are being attacked, not only by the Amharas, not only by the Fano very violent militia groups, and also the Federal Army, but also Eritrean troops, United Arab Emirates drones, and others. So it's just so beyond to me that a government that claims to be a reformist and a unifier tries to invite a foreign enemy and let that foreign enemy kill, murder, massacre people, innocent people, and also destroy public infrastructures and loot even private houses. Troops are looting utensils, like they're destroying factories and at the same time looting like very small things that you wouldn't imagine a troop to be doing. So just to tie it up at the end, what I want to say is the international community needs to be aware of the level of atrocity that's being committed in the dark. Genocide is happening in Ethiopia right now on the people of Tigray, just like how it happened in Rwanda in the early 90s. The people of Tigray have been dehumanized. The regime in Addis Ababa, in the capital of Ethiopia, has been broadcasting state-sponsored hate speech against Tigrayans, so that whenever the Amharas and other people embark on their mission to exterminate, they don't feel bothered. We have been called daytime hyenas. We have been called so many ugly names that take away the humanity of our people, so that people find it very easy for them to exterminate and kill us and butcher us just like chickens. So what's happening is very alarming, and we want the international community to open its eyes, to break its silence, and to do whatever they can to put pressure on the Eritrean regime and also the Ethiopian regime in order to stop the ongoing genocide. Otherwise, what happened in Rwanda is being repeated in Ethiopia and Tigray, and the international community doesn't have any excuse whatsoever to say, oh, we didn't know, just like what they say when it comes to Rwanda.
And now that I'm reading the chat room, and people are saying that there's not genocide in Ethiopia, and those are the most horrifying and disgusting comments that anybody can read and see. And I really mean it, because it's not, people can say whatever they want to say. We're in a country of democracy and free speech, obviously, but anyone that celebrates during children's death, when women are trying to give birth on the road their way to Sudan, and they are dying because they don't have the basic needs, yet for people to have the audacity to say, oh, nothing is happening, and for the Abiy himself said to the Ethiopian parliament that when they enter to Tigray and throughout the cities, he mentioned, I'm not going to go through everything he said, but he clearly told Ethiopia and the world that not a single person have died. And so I think we know this guy, obviously can't no longer tell between the truth and lies. But why, Kathy, why is the military so naive and allowing one even man who is politically immature, should not actually be in charge in the country? In fact, he should be removed, to be honest with you, because he has no mandate. Why is the military turning their backs on their own citizen, which the Tigray people, as we speak, they are still part of Ethiopia. It's a regional government. So if you don't mind, Kathy, just kind of help the audience to understand why. Why is it that the 110 million plus people in Ethiopia can't really see what's happening, and and remove this guy, the generals who are siding with him, dancing with him, allowing the massacre to take place? They will be held accountable when this is over, obviously. But why are they still going along with this atrocity?
Well, you asked why is the federal government military
The military, well, there's no
not,
federal government right now, but the military.
against Tigray? Yeah, I mean, first of all, you guys remember, like, this has been in the work for the past 2 years. When they killed the general Saare Makonnen about 1.5 years ago, obviously he's from Tigray. So as a leader of the military, he knew that he can't go past him. But we also know, I think right before the war, he depleted any Tagaro military in the federal to make sure that they don't turn against him. So all of these military groups are, dictator Abiy's supporter. They're with him. They're on a mission, as he said, law and order. But clearly, this is a genocide that they're supporting and they're executing. I mean, you think about it, like, I don't even consider them a really reliable military. They're a dictator just like him. The whole entire parliament that he's leading is a dictator to me. They're all committing genocide, even straight from the president. I don't know her name, the woman. I mean, she's just a witch to me. She is
she's a door greeter, by the way. Sorry. She's a door greeter as a president. There's no such in Ethiopia. So she greets.
Yeah, I mean, it's too big for her, that position. The first woman of president of Ethiopia. She's a disgrace to me. But I mean, for them to invite a neighboring country, the federal government, and go to war and try to target and kill civilians and try to destroy Tigray. Let me just mention, this is clearly a genocide, and you mentioned, somebody commented, there's no genocide. This is what everybody has been preaching from all the media outlets that support Abiy. This has been something they've destroyed, they've looted, they bombed. They'll turn around and say it was the TPLF who did it. Clearly, they're all on the same agenda and the same messaging, that they're all, basically communicating together to basically say anything that's been done wrong and ugly is always to blame the Tigray people. Unfortunately for them, the truth is going to come out. It may be slow, but it's trickling. The world is noticing. They're realizing that the hidden agenda behind it and how they've been working on international media platform to try to create this narrative like that it's actually the original government of Tigray behind all this ugliness that's been happening in Ethiopia. Some of the things that I've been hearing really is just so horrific, you guys. Anybody that's 10 years old and over and 60 years old and under are killed. This is from an Eritrean military that Isaias has ordered them to do, is kill anybody 10 years older and 60 years old and under. Just think about it, what it would do, what it does to this community, to Tagaro people, and you leave the youngest and yet the oldest, and you have no working class, middle class, the people that make the country happen and develop it. You destroy that, what do you have? You really have an ethnic cleansing, a complete genocide, because neither of them can survive without those two gap ages. So it's really horrific, and it's really unfortunate, and I just hope and pray that the world really does intervene before it's too late. As Maada said, genocide is happening. This is another Rwanda repeating, and I hope the world will wake up and just realize and do something about it.
Danny, why is the world not doing anything about it?
Well, so if you understand the world's politics, you kind of see a sense of why things are not being brought up to the forefront. Every nation, superpower, has its own self-interest, national interest. And it may seem like these nations would do the right thing, but they are always after what would be the most suitable thing for their nation or for their self-interest. So you will see a delay. Now, if you look at EU, EU has a self-interest of not having refugees at its shores. So EU is acting a little more promptly compared to the US and other superpowers. The EU just recently removed or took away the $110 million annual aid that they would give to Ethiopia. They're doing that because they want to discourage the Ethiopian government from adding more fire to more fuel to the fire that's going on in Tigray. And so, from that standpoint, you understand that these governments are only going to act as it fits their personal interest or national interest. The U.S. the administration, to me, from what I see, I don't want to accuse the U.S., but to me, I felt like that the U.S. is a bit on the side of Abiy. I think they wanted to have one person who is at the helm that they can control. A lot of these superpowers, they usually make their decisions by having to deal with one person instead of having these independent, different national states that
actually. Let me interrupt you there, Danny. I'm sorry. Actually, you're not blaming the U.S. I think the U.S. actually, the current administration, is treating the current crisis like cold-hearted. I'm going to be blunt with you. In fact, it is doing unethical things, the least to say. It has every power to actually stop what's happening right now in two ways. It could pick up the phone and, for the sake of humanity, tell the Abiy administration, the Eritrean the Eritrean dictators, to stop the massacre. And the reason I say this to you, because we know that the U.S. has the satellite images and have intercepted communications that Eritrea has sent its military from day one. There's no doubt on that. So I want to be clear with for the audience. I want to be very clear. So knowing that, the U.S. has every ethical and moral obligation to speak up and to stand against evil. What we have today in Ethiopia is self-proclaimed leader who is not elected by the people, for the people, killing its own people. So that being said, the second option the U.S. could take, if they really want to, is support a UN resolution. So if you briefly could talk about why is the UN not publicly pressuring the U.S. to go along with, because I think most EU countries obviously are finally speaking up. But I think we have hurdles to, like, over the current administration, and I'm afraid that between now and the next administration comes in, that we're going to lose too many lives, and it's going to be too late, because in Kosovo, America took swift action. The difference, of course, is Ethiopia is in Africa, Kosovo is in Europe. So why is it that when crises occur in Europe, U.S. not only speaks up about it, but takes immediate action, but it doesn't happen when African nations are in crisis?
Well, so I think this current administration that's about to be exiting out the doors is a bit unique in terms of previous foreign policy of the U.S. So that's one thing that we can openly kind of have on the table. But outside of that, I think that the legitimate government of Ethiopia made the decision to invade Tigray on the premises that we're watching the election and there may be a shift in foreign policy within the U.S. That's my personal belief, but that may not. I can argue for it. We were all watching the U.S. and things happen on the invading Tigray, and as it leads to where you have a transitional team that goes from November 3rd all the way to January 20th, you have abundance amount of time to do a lot of killing and to not be held accountable because the U.S. is going between two governments, two administrations. And so when we see that, it's heartbreaking, because we've talked to a lot of representatives from different parts of the country, and they tell you they're concerned. And they're concerned, and you would repeatedly hear that they're concerned. And then if they want to go a little above that, they'll tell you they're very concerned. and that's it. That's all you're going to get off of a lot of these politicians. But at the same time, it's important to know that these representatives don't have too much power. They do influence the administration, but they don't actually have the actual power to make that to actually act directly. The State Department is the one that has ultimately a huge power, and then the White House. The White House actually makes decisions on a lot of the foreign policies outside of declaring war. So
Sure.
when we understand all of this, the U.S. Lagged, but as you know, you can look at the last 4 years. The U.S. pulled out of the Paris climate deal. There's a lot of things that just the U.S. is doing that it doesn't traditionally do, and so when we see this. Abiy Ahmed has gotten a free ticket to commit genocide in Tigray without being held responsible, at least by the head superpowers, the U.S. China doesn't normally get involved in international affairs. You don't hear that much, but I think Russia and other European countries are on the sideline, either kind of testing the waters or coming in. And I feel like the Horn as a whole is in a fire, in a big fire pit right now, because it seems the language that you hear from Sudan, the language that you hear from Egypt, the language that you hear from Kenya and Somalia, South Sudan, and now Ethiopia, Eritrea, all of it is chaos and war, because there is an alignment of multiple people wanting to be dictators in the area, and there are others that believe in democracy and actually having some sort of a peaceful place to live. And the war in Tigray is expanding out to even broader war across the region. And so it's important that the international community pays attention to this and acts swiftly, because if they don't, what that does is it creates a place where there's going to be a displacement of, just like what you see in Syria. Syria was a middle income country. It was very sufficient, but because it became a hot place for war, and now you see Syrians fleeing and going all over the place. And that's the same thing I see happening within from Tigray, from Ethiopia, and from the Horn of Africa as a whole, because it's becoming a place of war, and it has a little bit of peace, So
thank you, Danny. So I'm gonna stay on that topic. So, Kathy, we now know that the Beishangul region also have uprising going on. I believe there was a few hundred deaths that took place. The Abiy administration claimed that he sent troops and killed 42 or so. Sudan has entered its military and is taking pretty good amount of the Amhara region territory. Eritrea has moved its military now to the Sudanese border. What Danny was talking about is that now you have potentially not only the war in Tigray that has been involved with Eritrea and the rest of Ethiopia, but now you have Sudan and Egypt and regional conflict. What are we seeing in East Africa? Oh, you muted. Sorry. There you go.
Clearly, neighboring countries are looking at a weak Ethiopia at this current state. While Ethiopia is fighting their own people and killing their own people, they see this as an opportunity to seize what they say is their land. And of course, it's not just Sudan. I believe Egypt has given support to Sudan, saying that they stand behind them. Clearly, there is tension between Sudan, Egypt, with the whole dam issue that hasn't been resolved, and there seems to be, an opportunity for them to, do what they want or possibly destroy the dam. At this point, Ethiopian government's federal military is weak. They're getting destroyed. Of course, they're, not all in power right now, but this is giving other neighboring countries the opportunity to take what's theirs and also destabilize Ethiopia as a whole. Too many of the northern Africa, And this is going to go on for a long time, it seems like. I believe Kenya is having its own issue on the Somalia border. So it's just going to be a total chaos. It's going to be, the war may continue, not just, within the region or within the Ethiopia region only, but it may end up being a war with other countries. And this could go on for a long time, unfortunately.
Maza, so I want to say on that topic, you see what Abiy has done to Ethiopia. He's targeted ethnically based Tagaro throughout the Tigray region and throughout Ethiopia. We have seen mass arrests throughout Addis Ababa. He's now targeting even wives of prior military who have nothing to do with politics. Has decimated all federal troops that from Tigray region that has served Ethiopia throughout Ethiopia and throughout the region, in Somalia particularly, even in Liberia and various other places as peacekeepers. They have been removed from the federal forces. And he, in fact, has opened vacuum to Ethiopia, which is why neighboring countries are just freely entering into Ethiopia and land grabbing. So what does it tell us? The maturity or lack thereof, Abiy Ahmed's logistics and thinking politically, how naive do you think this guy's been?
This guy is a person who believes that his mother told him that he will be the seventh king of Ethiopia. He is a person without any legitimate academic background. He is a person who thrives of plagiarism. He's a person who, basically tries to administer a country based on, some kind of movie or theatrical kind of thing. So he's not a typical kind of leader, a person who is, whom you believe would come up with very sophisticated political and economic policies that would actually transform a country. He doesn't possess any of the qualities that you would expect an astute leader or a politician to have. And when you have that kind of leader in a country so complex as Ethiopia is, it's very obvious. What will transpire is very obvious, that it's the distraction and fragmentation of the country. And that's exactly what he's doing. But it's quite unfortunate that we have a population within Ethiopia who is so full of hatred towards the Tagaru that they're unable to see all this bad and terrible things that Abiy is doing to Ethiopia as well, not only to Tigray, but also Ethiopia. The economy has deteriorated. Ethiopia's security is on its worst. As I said, so many other foreign actors are involved and they're actively working to destabilize Ethiopia. And that's mainly because the loophole that Abiy has created. He created it because he was so invested on exterminating the people of Tigray. He's willing to pay whatever price it takes so as to see Tigrayans wiped out from the earth. So he doesn't care what kind of implication or what kind of negative impact that would have on the country as a whole, because he clearly doesn't care about that. He is after eliminating Tigrayans and he's willing to do whatever it takes. And that's why you saw him purging peacekeepers that were, actively protecting the territorial integrity of Ethiopia, and also playing a very pivotal role in maintaining peace and security within the Horn of Africa. He doesn't care about none of that. All he cares about is to see Tigrayans kneel down, to see Tigrayans being subjugated, and he's willing to do anything that it takes to do it, because he understands, I believe, to a certain degree, that Tigrayans are not a group of people that could be defeated easily, because the principle that we're fighting for is a principle that our ancestors have fought for so many years. The right self-administration is something that as children of Tigray grew up listening to and adhering and respecting. So we don't want war, but if it comes to it, we're willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice of losing our life defending Tigray and also the right self-administration. So when you have this kind of people that are so strongly invested in their right self-administration, you know destroying that group of people is not going to be easy. But if you are crazy enough, you will expose the rest of the country in order to bring all possible forces that you could think of, and so that you could invest them in destroying that group of people. So that's what he's doing. And this goes to show you that how naive and immature Abiy Ahmed is as a leader. And for me, it just breaks my heart that the rest of Ethiopian people are not seeing this, because they're so full of hatred towards Tagaru for no apparent reason whatsoever. Because Tigray, as you all might know, has been part of Ethiopia that has continuously fought for the independence, for the sovereignty and peace and security of Ethiopia. We have paid so many lives in order to see Ethiopia being respected internationally. It's because of the hard work that our leaders, alongside leaders from other ethnic groups, put in, that Ethiopia was successfully able to achieve double-digit economic growth for a very long time, that Ethiopia successfully defeated terrorist attacks from groups such as Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab. But he doesn't care about none of this, and this for me goes to show that he's so immature and incompetent to lead a household, much less a very complicated country like Ethiopia.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. I think it's disgraceful to the many Tagarus and the rest of Ethiopians who bled and died for the freedom that Ethiopians have enjoyed for the last 27 plus years. When he say that Ethiopia was in dark for 27 years, what's sad is that he thought he could blame the very people he was part of. The irony of it is that he was a soldier himself. So to say that the leadership prior to him becoming an interim prime minister when Desalegn and Hailemariam resigned is somehow that the delusional aspect of the question that I had was that it's very clear. But I appreciate you explaining that. Danny, I want to kind of to talk about the end game here. So his lies, obviously, we know are not serving him good. He's desperate now, while innocent civilians are still dying and in desperate needs of help. But clearly, he hasn't captured a single leader in Tigray. So what is the end goal here? What's next?
Well, so this goes hand in hand with what Maza and Kathy said. This isn't, again, if you understand it, this isn't a war against TPLF or the leadership. They want to make it sound that because it works well with the sound bites and the things that some of the individuals in Ethiopia would want to hear into their ears. But the war has been on the people of Tigray. Let's just make sure that we understand that the war is on the people of Tigray. How do you weaken the people of Tigray to the point that they will not stand up and question you? That's it. And so the end game here is the only way that we can move on. This is for everyone. Is that Isaias and Abiy must go? Like, both of these individuals have to be removed by force, or somehow they need to be removed out of power. Because if they're not, the chaos that has transpired in the last 1.5 years will continue. Today is in Tigray. Tomorrow it's going to be in Benshangul. The day after that is going to be in Afar. After that it's going to be in Somali and the south. All these places have had difficulties in the last 2.5 years, but it's going to be raised to a higher level. So to me, at this very point, the only way that there's going to be any kind of peace in the Horn is by Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki being removed from power. These two evil men will not allow for the civilians of this region to coexist peacefully. At least be able to talk in a manner of the 21st century and actually debate ideas and craft a better region. And that's The only way we're going to see that is if these two men are removed from power. The other thing is that we have to have institutional power, institutional segregation between the different parts of government. The executive branch, the prime minister's office on itself has to be just one section. And then the parliament needs to be like its own power, just as it is in the US. The structure of separating the different branches is important because right now, the reason why Abiy Ahmed is willing and able to do what he's doing is because he controls all of these. They don't have no independence in terms of acting and stopping a war that's taking place within the country with a different sovereign nation joining you to attack your own people. So to me, the end game is one, removing both of these leaders, two, making sure that the institutions that we have in place are modified to be independent of their own. So there's checks and balances between the different branches. If we don't have that, it's not going to work. But when it comes to the people of Tigray, there's going to be a lot of rebuilding for us to do. There's a lot of healing that we have to do. There's a lot of trauma that we have to deal with after this war. And this is a moment that I want to share with the Tigrayans across the world. Be prepared. Be prepared to help our people. Be prepared financially, mentally, and in skill capacity to go and rebuild Tigray 10 times better than it was before. I think this is a moment that we need to really shine, and our newer generation to come in and do what the generation of in the 70s, 80s have done, and the Qadamai in the 40s and 50s have done, and then the generation before that were part of the as Johannes and them did. So this is a generational opportunity for ours to step up and help and make sure that we bring Tigray to a higher elevation. So there's a lot. There's going to be a lot that will be needed from us. I just hope that everyone is mentally and physically preparing themselves to be part of that.
So I want to stay on that real quick, that topic, Danny. So we know tomorrow, December 28th, there are two known protests that we know in Portland, Oregon, and Denver, Colorado. What are the young Tagarus and supporter of Tigray people doing, and what's the purpose of the protest that will be held tomorrow?
Well, so again, this would be something that Marza can elaborate a lot better because she's involved in all the groups that are. Me and Kathy, we're involved maybe one or two, I think, but Marza is involved in all of them. So she can probably explain to you.
Sure, I'll help you there. Okay, I'll help you. So, and I will give Marza an opportunity. So, obviously, the purpose of the protest is to make the world aware of the crisis that's happening back in Tigray. It's pure and simple. We have massacre, we have genocide that is led by unelected Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia and Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea have unleashed massacre on civilians. Yes. Which actually, while I'm going to give an opportunity for Maza to talk about the protest, I actually want to shift to Kathy with that specifically talking about the location. We know an area that you personally, your grandparents or grandmother is impacted by the massacres and heavy fighting that have taken place recently. We're not going to say specifically, but recently. And also, one of our guests tonight that was going to come to the show canceled the discussion because she's mourning one of her family member as a result of the massacre, what's happening. And if you don't mind, can you touch base on that? And then I'm going to give the opportunity for Maza to talk about the protest.
Yeah, it is as internet and phones are opening in Makala slightly, not really everywhere. We still don't know how many and where everybody's affected, but we are getting news, a lot of young men, young women dying and killed. And of course, we found out recently that one of our extended family in Chicago has been notified that one of their son has been killed during this war. But some of the news that I've heard are in it was in the Nevalet region or area. It is where my hometown is, and it's been heavily affected for the last 2-3 days. There's been a lot of killing, and this is by the Eritrean troop, is what I hear. Before they, I hear they've been kicked out of that area now, but prior to that, they've done major killing, massacring. Like I mentioned earlier, anybody that's 10 years and older and 60 years and younger are being killed blindly. It doesn't matter who it is, what it is. Some of the news that I'm hearing is like this older gentleman who's 70 years old came across 2 young men who were killed, and he tried to put blanket over them to cover them, and then the Eritrean troops shot him right then for even doing that. So the dignity of just human being, family members can't even bury their loved ones. They're just if their family members are killed in front of their house, they're not allowed to even bury their loved ones. They are to leave them there or they will be killed. This is the kind of gruesome, horrific news that we're getting straight from the source out there. So this is really terrible. I think Danny mentioned it earlier. Everybody has to brace themselves for the worst. We have no idea how bad things are out there. But we're all going through this as a community, as a family, and we just have to support each other. But I think, just to stress the fact that we really have to voice, be loud as much as we can. Someone mentioned to me earlier over the phone that the protests are great 1 day, 2 day, but I think it needs to be like a massive, like maybe even like a week-long protest. When we're talking about squatting maybe at the state, somewhere where we think that we can get our message across. We need to be able to do to that level where if we can coordinate with everybody and just, if we have to just camp out there for weeks until somebody hears us that they're going to take some kind of action, we really have to do some kind of extra measure to be able to get our voice across. And it's really important. But like I said, I think everybody just need to brace themselves for what's to come as we learn the news, who's affected.
I appreciate the heartbreaking story that you're sharing. That story is not just your friend's story, but it's many people's story that we would spend hours talking about. But the reality of it is that all of us have families back home in Tigray. We are proud where we come from. We're proud of our culture and heritage. But we never thought in our generation we would see a third war in Ethiopia. It's a disaster, extremely reckless. I think what really is happening is undescribable. There is a person asking, is it safe to call home, our family back home? I would let Maza, when you describe about the protest, I'll let you mention that. But I would say to those of you who are listening, we appreciate you joining us. I would caution you, when you do call using prepaid or directly to your families back home, I would be extremely careful. You know, your phone calls are being recorded and heard, and you are actually potentially risking your loved ones. I personally have not gotten hold of any of my family since the war started. I don't know where they're at. I don't know what's happening. And the story goes on and on the same way. So I would recommend for many of you who have family back home, unless you have an encrypted way of communicating through WhatsApp, I would caution you to not do that, or at least keep it simple. hi, how you doing, and end the call. Because anything you do, you put in your loved ones at a greater risk by the very people who are determined to eliminate. But I want to give Maza the opportunity. I know, Maza, I'm going to be with you tomorrow. Looking forward to it. But tell us the two protests that we are looking forward to allow for Americans to see and the world to see what's happening. And we are going to try to have it live, by the way, through Tigray Media House. And if we have, the ability through Cyber Power of Tigray, we'll try to air some of the stories. But briefly, can you tell us, like, the purpose behind it, what the protest is all about?
Yeah, before that, I would like to highlight a couple of things that you guys have talked about. The first one is regarding the connectivity. Internet is still shut down across Tigray, and like everywhere, there is no any internet access anywhere. If you see people, connecting through internet, it's only because some of them might have access to satellite internet. That's the only way people are accessing internet. So it's very important to emphasize that Abiy Ahmed still continues to have Tigray under siege, and there is no internet connectivity in Tigray. And even the phone connectivity, it's only in Maqala, and it's very spotty, and he did it for his own benefit. And that is, he's trying to claim that things are back to normal. And as an evidence, he's using how, phones are still working in Maqala, but that's not the case. Phones are being still intercepted. The government is listening to phone conversations, and it's not safe for anyone to call home. If you do, no matter what kind of app you use, even if it's WhatsApp or Signal or what have you, the government still has access to the phone conversations. The government is still trapping phone conversations. They're listening. So everyone needs to be careful with the things they talk about. Just like Mike suggested earlier, call your loved ones. If you're lucky enough to hear their voice, just say, hi, how are you? And that's it. Because I received an information from people back home telling me how the INSA, or the intelligence authority of the Ethiopian region, is listening not only to phone conversations coming from abroad, but also our family members. They're even going to the extent of checking their bank transaction of the past 4 months. And this is all being done in order to incriminate Tigrayans that were able somehow, to talk to their family members abroad. So we all need to be careful. And also, earlier you asked what the end goal is. And the end goal is, from our side, from the people that are being killed and murdered unjustly side, is to maintain our territorial integrity, it's to maintain our right to self-administration. And that struggle is going to continue no matter who remains. We might lose our leaders, we might lose the youth, the young generation, but the struggle will continue until the last breathing Tigrayan person is alive. So it's very important that the world understands. It's important that the people of Tigray and the diaspora community understand that this struggle has never ever been about saving one political party. It has never ever been about protecting one city or a region in Tigray. It's about our collective identity, and it's about our collective existence. And it will continue to the point where these two rights are respected. And these are just some of the things I wanted to highlight. But coming back to the protest, there has been initiative taken by the younger generation based in North America to hold protests at the same day across the US. And as part of that initiative, I believe our community organizers based in Portland, where I'm right now, as well as in Denver, have organized the protest tomorrow. The goal is to make sure the general public understands what exactly is happening in Tigray. Because I personally feel like all politicians across the world know what's happening to our people. It's the general public that may not have access to information, mainly because international media outlets are not allowed to enter to Tigray and to report what's exactly happening on the ground. And this is being done technically by the Abiy Ahmed regime in order, to block the evidence from coming out so that he can continue to exterminate Tigrayans unbothered. And so the responsibility of amplifying our people's plight falls on us, on the diaspora community. And in order to fulfill that responsibility, we continue to have protests across the US on different occasions, on different locations. And as a continuation of that activity, tomorrow here in Portland, there will be protests starting 12 p.m. Pacific time. It will be on the, I believe it would be on the Pioneer Square. I'm sure Mike will say more about the specific location.
Yep, Pioneer Square. You got it. You got it. Downtown Portland. So we're gonna have a good speakers. But yes, it's downtown Portland, Pioneer Square. You got it.
And we want people to show up in masses. Folks who are based in Seattle, because it's nearby, you guys have to drive and come here and show up and speak up for our people. Make sure you bring your respective flags and slogans. This is not a call only for Tigran, the Tigran diaspora. It's a call for anyone who stands for justice, for humanity, and for human rights. Anyone who abhors unjust killing and massacre of innocent people is welcome to come to the protest, stand with us, and say no to war. Basically, that's what we're saying. We don't wish harm or injustice on anyone, even on our killers. We don't want them to be massacred just like how they're massacring us. We want them to be brought to justice and face justice properly in accordance to international human rights laws. So we call upon all peace-loving people to come and stand hand in hand with Tigray diaspora and amplify our plight, and call upon relevant international actors, particularly US government officials, to do their job and to stop the war. Because if anyone can stop the war, it's the US and its fellow member states of the UN Security Council. And we want them to do this right now, because as we speak, million Tagaru are being killed. They're dying, not only of the bullets, as I always say, but also because of shortage of food and medication. And so we want everyone to show up in masses and speak up for our people. But it's not only in Portland, it's also in Denver. So everybody make sure to get information from your respective local community organizers. You can also go to standwithtigray.com, where you will get specific information about all protesters and what is expected of you, so that you can have the right information and show up on the right time and on the right place.
And I'm gonna add to that. Thank you, Maza. So January 8th, we are planning to have worldwide protests. So all you young Tagars around the world, no matter what you speak, English, Arabic, list all the language out there, we're going to make it International Protesting Day on January 8th. So mark your calendar. Danny, I want to come back to you. I want some encouraging words from you, my brother, about the young Tagars across North America, Europe, throughout the globe, and to the people in Tigray who have been suffering in the hands of tyranny.
Okay. Yeah. So let me plug in a little bit about our protest tomorrow. We will also have a protest here in Denver. It's going to be on 6th and Lincoln. That's where we would start, but we're going to be marching down to the state capitol. So if you're in the Denver metro area in Colorado, or you're visiting, please do come out and be with the people of Tigray in our protest against the war. And it's going to start at noon. 12 p.m. Mountain Time. The flyers are on standwithtigray.com, and follow those guidelines, or on Facebook. You should be able to see them with some of the friends that have been promoting it. Two, I also want to acknowledge the virtual protest that's happening with the Las Vegas community tomorrow. The youth over there are putting together a virtual protest because of the COVID guidelines, the restrictions, and the pandemic being out of control in Nevada. And so make sure you go out there, support them. They have a raffle going on. Go ahead and buy some raffle tickets where some prizes will be given out. I think that's very encouraging to see, because they're thinking outside the box. And so I want to salute the Las Vegas Tagaru youth for coming up with such an amazing idea. But outside of that, to our people, anyone who is in the US, Canada, Europe, Australia, we've been talking to each other, which to me is an amazing thing. think if there's one positive thing that came out of this war, it's that Tagaros are more united than they've ever been. And so in that regards, I like the idea that we're coming together and we're working together. That's one thing that I really like. But also, let's think a little bit bigger than that. Let's come together. Let's work collectively. Let's come in and collaborate instead of duplicating tasks and doing things that may not be working. Let's assess ourselves and do things that actually work and can improve our advocacy efforts. And so with that in mind, I challenge every Tigrayan across the world that has an ability to speak to make sure that they're vocally speaking on a daily basis and kind of exposing some of the information that we're getting that's coming out of Tigray. And, somehow some information comes out and we're getting that. And we want to make sure that we amplify that through our platforms. But at the same time, I wish to see that the Tigrayans across the world are coming together to forming their communities within the local area. And then from the local area, they're coming in on a national level. And from the national level, we're thinking globally in order to make sure that we're fighting this in a more proper way. And also we're preparing ourselves into helping rebuild Tigray when the time comes. And so all of this is just to our communities outside. To some of our adult members, the older generation folks that have been fighting for a very, very long time, I think there needs to be an understanding that the messaging that these politicians understand when we're doing the conversations now is a bit different than what they're used to. We've never been asked and to be in front of a politician before. To tell them about what's going on, the atrocities that's going on in Tigray. And that messaging is being lost in some cases that I see it. So I encourage the older generations to be very open-minded to hearing the ideas that the youth have in order for us to move that lever. Because if we're not communicating to our politicians, these people that actually have the abilities to make changes in policies and others, we need to make sure that we're being very, very our approach needs to be very clear and direct to the message. But outside of that, to our people in Tigray, again, I think we had a campaign that was called Tigray to Tigray. Somehow from here came up with an idea to send heartfelt messages to the people of Tigray, and I'm going to do just that. We
Tigray and throughout Ethiopia, because we have Tigrayans throughout Ethiopia that are suffering from this. Sorry.
No, I understand. So the message was to Tigrayans that are in Ethiopia suffering. It wasn't just to Tigray. But what it is we love you. We are hurt just like you are, but from the emotional standpoint, you're facing the physical torture of this that you're being subjugated. You're in the rest of Ethiopia. They're coming to your houses to raid your houses. They're laying you off or removing you from your post from different federal positions. They're jailing you for just being Tigrayan. And we feel that pain. We stand with you. To the people in Tigray that's fighting, first of all, I want to give the absolute highest regards and my true respect to the Tigray Defense Force for fighting day in, day out for the last 54 days. They have been fighting in all trenches in Tigray, and so they're doing two things. They're fighting our invaders, and also they are choosing the places that they fight in order to avoid civilian casualties. This art of having to do both is something of a very, very challenging to do, but they are doing it. And so to me, I want to show the utmost respect to Tigray Defense Forces. I also want to show my utmost respect to the people of Tigray who are helping each other in this difficult time by sharing the very little they have amongst each other for survival. And a lot of people have been showing that, the evidence of that. And that just speaks to the true nature of Tigrayans. We are not a selfish people. We care about each other. We hold each other dearly, and we want to make sure that they survive. And so the people of Tigray, continue doing what you're doing. I know you're in a very, very bad place right now, but we are here to help. And hopefully that the gates open and we're able to get humanitarian assistance to come to make sure that our people are safe and sound. A lot, I know, I do a lot, but it's just because all of it needs to be said, and I'm sure the ladies can add into that.
I love it, man. I you know what? I was gonna do an hour show, but you know, we're like hitting like 1 hour and a half. If you guys are not tired, I'm gonna give you an extra time. Kathy,
Okay.
you've been very patient, so go for it. The floor is yours, Kathy.
What I want to add, I think Danny said it well. What I want to add is, I think as individuals, we need to not just protest and advocate together as a group, but we also need to advocate individually. What that means for me is with your colleague, your company that you work with, reach out to them. You know, you never really, anybody that can hear you and listen to you, you'll be surprised. They have no idea. The news that we see every day, we breathe, we eat, they don't see it like we do. They have no idea. So what I've done, I've reached out to my company. Just last week, before the holiday break, we had an all-hand meeting. I took that opportunity to speak on this issue, you guys, and the amount of response that I received and the people that had no idea. And after all of the all-hand meeting ended, I had so many people reach out to me personally, email me, how can I help? What can I do? At the time, I had something drafted already that I had sent to the company for a weekly news that they wanted to release. And I had links, the I Stand with Tigray link and everything. And I was able to send that right away as soon as they reached out to me. So I really highly encourage everyone individually who work in the corporate world, especially, just push for to be able to advocate on your own as well. It's not just, as a community and gathering together and trying to figure out what we can do. We can do a lot to whoever can hear. So I really highly recommend that. And I know that I've seen that. The fact that personally people have reached out to me and said, Kathy, I had no idea you were going through this, and I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? So I want to just share that with everybody.
Thank you, Kathy. Somebody mentioned that be sure when you show up to Denver, Colorado, and Portland, Oregon, wear your mask, social distancing. Let's practice on that. COVID's real. Maza, I'll give you an opportunity if you want to add something before we wrap this up. And I appreciate you guys all for staying up late.
The one thing I want to add is for us to, for Tagaru, and as I mentioned earlier, for anyone who abhors injustice and genocide, to continue to fight for the innocent victims that are being killed, that are starving to death in Tigray, Ethiopia. It is very hard. I get it, especially for us Tagaru, having family members and our people back home trapped. The emotional toll is quite high, but we are all they got. Unless we speak up, nobody else would. And we have to take every opportunity to speak for our people, to speak about our people, to speak about all the war crimes and crimes against humanity that are being committed against the people of Tigray, both by dictator Abiy Ahmed as well as the Eritrean dictator Isaias Afwerki. We cannot afford to be tired. We cannot afford to be sad. We're sad, we're hurting, but this is time for us to fight. We have to hold our mourning. We have to hold our pain, and we have to step up, show up, and continue to advocate for our people. Take every opportunity you have. Use every and any language that you're able to speak. Make sure you knock the doors of your local representatives day in, day out. Reach out to anti-war movements. Reach out to women's rights advocacy groups. Reach out to religious groups. Anyone you think would be able to help, you have to go to them, talk to them. Don't expect for anyone to come and show you the way. We all need to be leaders at this time, because unless we do that, our people will continue to be exterminated in the dark. And there are so many things that we need to push for, but the most important thing is to still push for ceasefire, because the war is still active, it's ongoing, and we also need the humanitarian corridor to be open, because right now, as you guys remember, before the war broke out, Tigray was suffering one of the most worst locust swarms. So meaning our farmers didn't even have the opportunity to harvest their crops that they have worked on for a very long time across the year. and that means they don't even have any amount of food that is stored that they could, live off. So it's very important the humanitarian corridor is open. It's very important that international actors, manage the humanitarian assistance. They shouldn't leave it to Abiy, just like how, UN so far has signed 2 agreements with dictator Abiy to avail humanitarian aid. But we have seen how Abiy is weaponizing humanitarian food, much needed medication and food in order to get to the people of Tigray. So we need to continue to push for organizations such as UNICEF, and other international actors to not only provide the assistance, but also to manage it. That way we can be sure that our people will be able to get the much needed humanitarian aid. And in addition to that, we need international journalists to have access to Tigray so that they can show the world what exactly has been done for the past 54 days and what might continue. Because there are so many reports coming from Muqro, Adigrat, Aksum, Maqala, and Adwa, reports of mass massacre and mass killing, but we don't have any way of verifying that. The only means that we can know for sure is if an independent international investigation team is sent to Tigray and investigate. But in addition to the investigators, we also need journalists to tell the world what exactly is happening. And for all of this to happen, we need to be very vocal. We need to push for it, advocate for it, day in, day out, use Twitter actively. Those of you who might be new to Twitter, those of you who may not know how to articulate your pain and idea, there is a help that is provided by our very brilliant Tagaru based in the diaspora. So go to standwithtigray.com. You can see some of the templates there. And then all you have to do is just, amplify that in your own words. And at the same time, there are so many letters and petitions that need to be signed. Make sure, again, you go to standwithtigray.com, follow standtigray.com on all social media outlets so that you can get daily reminders, of how to continue our social advocacy. So these are some of the things I wanted to say, but I also want to take this moment to appreciate and thank everyone who has been advocating for our people from the very beginning without, any interruption whatsoever. This includes media such as Cyber Power of Tigray, Tigray Media House, Aksumite Media, and so many others. So I want to applaud everyone. Let's get this. We got this. It might be very difficult, but at the end of the day, truth always sides with it sides with the poor, with the innocent, with the subjugated and marginalized people. And so we are that kind of people and we will prevail. But let's remember the journey may not be easy. We have to prepare ourselves for the worst and hope for the best. Thank you so much for having us tonight. Mike.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. So to just end it in a reminder note, we're here tonight because our people are being choked by a dictator. We are witnessing genocide in the 21st century. And while it's shameful for the Eritrean and the Ethiopian dictators, the world needs to wake up. The young Tagaru who are speaking, including you guys, us, and the rest around the world, don't be discouraged. Be strong, be united. We are working 24/7 to help our people that deserve nothing less than respect and love. The Tigray people do not target people. Tigray, as we have stated it, has been the most peaceful region, not just in Ethiopia, but in East Africa for that matter. The economy in Tigray has been booming the last 2.5 years, while Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki were busy to dismantle the economy that was built by the administration prior to Abiy Ahmed. Now we know the economy in Ethiopia is destroyed. Ethiopian land is being grabbed by neighboring countries. It is chaos, if anything, that Abiy Ahmed had brought to Ethiopia. A delusional person, a narcissist mindset, who has reckless mindset should never been given the opportunity to lead, let alone 110 million people, even a million people. So the genocide he created in Tigray will not be forgotten. So to you, my brothers and sisters, and to the rest around the world, we're sick and tired of crying. We're sick and tired of like questioning. There's no question what's happening in Tigray. Innocent children, innocent women are being displaced. Young girl is being raped by evil. These are heartless people. So we're going to rise up. We're privileged to be in America. We love America. But America, we would like you to stand with us. Stand with us. Be the voice for the voiceless. It is the utmost that you can do to support innocent civilians who are being choked by a dictator who does not care about his people and is creating crisis in the Horn of Africa. And I believe America and the world has interest to see peace and stability in East Africa, and the Tigray people do not deserve what they are dealing with today and what they've been dealing for the last 54 days. And we are demanding for an end to the war, for a United Nations mandated investigators to go to Tigray, investigate the heinous crime that has been committed on civilians, and those who are responsible for the heinous crime should be brought into the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court. So Abiy Ahmed and Isaias Afwerki, you have nothing to be worried about by bringing an independent investigators to Tigray to investigate. So if what you're preaching and what you're lying is to be true, let independent investigators who have no interest on anybody come in, and what Maza, you've stated it clearly, let independent international media outlets enter the Tigray, turn the water on, turn the electricity on, turn the internet back on. Stop being a coward and stop being a killer. Thank you, my brothers and sisters. I appreciate you. And Cyber Power of Tigray appreciates you. And I look forward to having this discussion again with you guys next time. We'll make it shorter. I know it's exciting. We are forming this Tigrinya, obviously, to reach our audience who need to hear us. So I appreciate you guys. Have a good night. I'll see you in Portland tomorrow. Danny, good luck up there. Kathy, I'll be in touch with you as well. Let's do this hopefully again very soon. I'll be in touch with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for having us.